take a look at some of the black luminaries and see what they did to establish self-worth among blacks. Martin Luther King Jr. had many good things going for him: good parental background and support, high educational qualifications, was a successful minister of religion. Yet he submitted all these to a greater cause, the freedom of all mankind in general, and in particular, the freedom of blacks in America. He became a martyr for this cause.
When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican-born black, dedicated his life for the unification of blacks in the diaspora. He reasoned that since life was so oppressive for his people in this part of the world, they should return to the motherland where they can establish themselves as free human beings. He founded the Black Star Line shipping company, by which means he could take blacks back to Africa. He had millions of followers. Malcolm changed his slave name to Malcolm X, by which he was later known. His teachings focused on the dignity and economic independence of black people living in the United States of America. He emphasized that blacks should hold themselves responsible for making themselves free and economically independent.
Well, how will that re-education be brought about? Well, just as in World War II, this country could use its news media to propagandize and make the whole American public love the Germans and the Japanese, rather love the Russians and the Chinese and hate the Germans and the Japanese. And then after the war, they changed it and made the American public love the Germans and love the Japanese, hate the Russians and hate the Chinese, which shows that they can make the American public love whom they will and hate whom they will. And that same process can be used to re-educate the American public and show white people how to love black people and show black people how to do something to stand on our own feet and solve our own problems.
Nelson Mandela, after spending 27 years in one of the worst prisons in South Africa for his stand on the deplorable apartheid system, returned to become the first president of the Republic of South Africa. Admirably, he did not express hatred for his oppressors, but was able to work with them successfully for a better South Africa.
I love you.
Muhammad Ali, born Cassius Marcellus Clay, became one of the most dynamic sportspersons of all times. He demonstrated extraordinary willpower and self-confidence in everything he did. When white America thought that blacks were ugly, and even blacks themselves internalized this myth, Muhammad Ali was selling the idea that black is beautiful. Ali was prepared to stand alone and even give up his life for what he believed to be wrong. He was banned from professional boxing and his title taken away from him when he refused to be drafted into the U.S. Army to fight in Vietnam. Sojourner Truth was a woman of great Spartan fortitude. When she was experiencing all the lynching and other trials that black people in America had to encounter, she asked herself a fundamental question: is God dead? Despite these trials and the loss of all her children to slavery, she did not give up fighting for freedom. Luminaries as these great black people grace history with their presence. They appear as comets in the spectrum of time. But while they do enlighten us and teach many useful things in life, and may even inspire some of us, they cannot be true role models for the majority of blacks.
This statement sounds controversial, but in a way I tend to agree. You see, people are influenced mostly by what they see around them. If my neighbor, my classmate, my colleague at work, or someone I'm acquainted with becomes famous or successful. This will have a greater impact on my life than someone who is distant or live in some other time.
Success is not easy. This is generally true for all peoples, but it is particularly applicable to blacks in the diaspora. There are many mountains in the way of success: racism, barriers to opportunities, negative images of blacks perpetuated by the media and other sources, and the list goes on. As a result, it is easy to become despondent or discouraged when thrown against the backdrop of all these negative factors. Listen to some ordinary blacks who have passed through or are still passing through many challenges in life and yet have triumphed. They have been battling racism and discrimination like any black person living in the diaspora, but they have refused to fall victim. If they can do it, so can you. From grade 3 through high school, Davine Burton has experienced racism and discrimination, but this did not deter her from achieving her goals in life. As an unwed mother of 2 kids, Davine attended college to become a registered nurse, but her passion was to become a lawyer.
Hi, my name is Davine Burton. I am currently a law student in my last year. In 1989, I graduated with my nursing diploma. I worked as a registered nurse for about 2.5 years at Sick Children's Hospital in Toronto. It was a great experience. After that, I decided I wanted to go to law school, but I wasn't sure if I would be able to do what it took. So I went back to university and I did an honors BA in kinesiology and health sciences. And then I got into law school, which was always my dream.
But during the high school days, was it very easy for you to... Could you tell me something about your high school days?
Sure, it was not easy. In fact, I can probably start in grade 3 because that's when I came to Canada from Jamaica. Okay. And I mean, I came from Jamaica and I was put into a Catholic school. I was the only black child in the school. Oh, yeah. Here I was, very, very strong accent. Didn't know anybody black. A lot of the students had not seen a black student before, so I was this novelty. And it was awful. Like, the racism was incredulous. I went home every night and I cried. And I begged my mother to change schools. She said, no, you know, this is the best place for you. And I moved in grade 4 and I went to another Catholic school. This time there were 2 black kids in the school. And the other student didn't really befriend me, I guess because that would make her too black. So she hung out with the white kids, so once again, I was marginalized, and it was an awful experience. And actually, that was probably the worst time of all my academic career. I fought on average 4 out of 5 times a week. 4 out of 5 times, like practically every day, and I was suspended all the time. They had corporal punishment to my school, so I got the strap. And it was just because kids just they kept calling me names, making racial comments, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And that was my only way of expressing my anger. I finally left that school in grade 8, went to a Catholic school in grade 9. Another awful experience. Wanted to go to C.W. Jeffries, where all my friends are going, but my mom said no. So off I went to Dante Alighieri Academy. It was a school run by nuns, and that was an awful experience as well. There were 7 black kids in that school. I made a couple of friends, but in grade 10 I got pregnant, and I left there, and I dropped out of school actually. I lived actually in a group home for unwed mothers, Bethel Home. It was a wonderful place. I finished some courses while I was there, and after my son was born, I went to live with my mom and my stepdad, my brother, my sister, and things didn't really work out. And I moved out when my son was 3 months, and my relationship with my family was not very strong. And as I look back now, I realize that during the times when my relationship was not strong, those were the times in my life that were really weak and hard. I got pregnant again and I had another son. So I had 2 sons by the time I was 18. But I decided after my second son was born that I really needed to do something. I was on welfare, and that wasn't where I had envisioned myself to be, and that was not where my mother or my father wanted me to be. So I went back to school, enrolled my kids in daycare, went to school, finished high school, went to college, became a nurse.
What college you?
I went to Humber College.
Humber, okay.
Yeah, it was a 3-year course, and I loved it. And actually my first year I was on the Dean's Honor Roll, and that's when I really realized that I could really do it. If I put my mind to it, I could really get good marks.
What really motivated you after having all that experience to make a second comeback? Was it the sort of stress and hardship you have experienced during that period that tell you to try again?
It was, and it was looking around and seeing a lot of single black mothers who were on welfare and who weren't doing anything. A lot of them were my friends. And I mean, I had a choice to make. I had to really look deep down inside and decide, you know, what kind of life do I want to lead? Like, what example do I want to set for my children? And I looked at all the times that, you know, I felt that I couldn't do it. People told me I couldn't do it because my accent was too strong, or because I was black, or because I was a single mother and I wasn't going anywhere. And my mom's a very strong person, and I think I'd take after her. And I guess it was a desire to prove them wrong. I remember in high school when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and I would go into the guidance counselor's office, and this is in Dante, and I was told about the nursing and about the child care worker and all the professions that were geared towards, I guess at that time, black women. So, and then in high school, when I went to George Harvey in grade 13, I had professors, teachers telling me that, you know, go to college. No one ever said to me, go to university. You can go to university, you can get a degree. So that was, I think that's probably why I initially ended up in college, because I really didn't think that I could make it.
Did your experience in college give you the confidence that you could make it at university?
Mm-hmm. It did. The fact that I was able to get really good marks. And I was also playing basketball. Okay. Sports has always been a very important part of my life. And that also gave me self-confidence. So, and after I graduated and I got a really good job at Sick Kids. It was a very coveted job. And I was like, wow, you know, I got that job. You know, something must be going on that's right. So I think all those things gave me confidence. I think one of the messages that I want to send is that throughout life we face all kind of adversities and we face obstacles. And there comes a point where you have to make a choice. And you have to decide if you're going to take that energy that you built up, facing those obstacles and facing those adversities, and use it in a positive way, or take it and use it in a negative way. And I decided to use mine in a positive way. And I know as Black youths, we face so many problems. We face teachers who put us down, people who don't believe in us. As single Black moms especially, you know, you face the fact that, you know, sometimes you're welfare. And sometimes people look down on you because you're not married and because, you know, you have children out of wedlock. But you can really use that and you can do something positive with it. I mean, I've always been very strong and I've always been very angry. And when I was 16 and 17 and 18 with kids, and people used to look at me in a funny way, I mean, I could have turned around and I could have said, you know, what are you looking at me like that for? But I chose not to. And I would just look back at them because I knew what I was inside. And you really have to make a choice. And you can use that energy, you really can, to succeed in life and to really go to school and do well in school and show them by getting your degree, by becoming successful. You know, you can show them by fighting them, but in the long run, you're just going to hurt you. And that's not what we need. We need you to take it, to be positive with it, to work really hard, and to succeed in life. And that's what I want to see. When I see a lot of young Black girls with kids, and I see that they're in the same position that I was a few years ago, oftentimes I'll go up and I'll say, you know, hi, my name's Davine. I know you don't know me, but I just want you to know that, you know, I was in your position. I had 2 kids, and this is what I'm doing now. And it never surprises me that a lot of these girls, they'll say to me, you know what, I want to do that. Or I want to do this, but I don't know if I can do it. And I end up giving my number a lot of time to people. And my friends think I'm crazy because I'm giving my numbers out to strangers. But I think if we all take a responsibility, once you've reached a certain point, if you take the responsibility and even reach out to 2 or 3 kids, and just to let them know that you're there to mentor them and to help them, I think that in a very short time you will see a turnaround, because a lot of these kids, they need to know that someone out there cares for them and that someone believes in them. And that's all they need sometimes, to believe in themselves. And I think that once that happens, that's half the battle won.
Guess what? 2 years after my first interview with Davine, she has graduated from law school and is now practicing in her own company in Toronto. I had the opportunity to visit her at her office. How long have you been practicing in your own office?
I've been practicing in January. It'll be 2 years.
Okay.
Yes. The best move I ever made.
Yeah.
Pushing just for a moment, but all the sense of accomplishment, that's every day. And pride. I mean, I am very proud of the fact that I'm a lawyer. That endures forever.
Okay.
So.
Mike is a successful auto mechanic who is operating a prosperous business in Markham, Ontario. He explains that his success is mainly due to motivation and stick-to-itiveness.
I observe, I saw a sign there, and it says that you have been in this trade 20 years ago.
Maybe 30.
All right.
Started at a very young age. 16.
You were 16.
16.
Was it easy to get where you are now? What are the steps, that take you where you really are now, in a nutshell?
The only step has to be you, and self-motivation.
And was it very difficult to get into business there and to get a customer clientele?
It's all up to the individual to have an open mind. Nothing could stop you. You can gain anything you want in Canada. The only person who could stop you is yourself. The sky is the limit.
Well, what experiences have you had along the way to
come to that kind of conclusion that there's nothing to stop you but yourself?
I always think positive and highly about myself, and I'm better than anybody. There's nobody better than me.
Okay.
You always have that. Always.
That positive approach.
Yeah, always have that.
Iva Saunders came to Canada from Trinidad in 1956. She came under contract to work as a domestic servant. Having fulfilled the terms of her contract, she proceeded to attend night school and graduated with a high school diploma. Her goal was to become a nurse, and she took it in stages. First, she graduated as a nursing assistant, and then she attended Seneca College, where she graduated as a registered nurse. Iva has now retired from nursing and is very involved in church and community activities.
Well, before I say anything to the young people, I would say to their parents, to take command of your children's education, their social background, to keep them on the right track, so that they would really want to pursue their education, because the opportunity is there for them to do it. A lot of opportunities are there for them to do it. They have to want to do it, and they have to work hard at it. But it has to start with the parents. Because what I think is happening now, when I came to Canada as a young person, well, 23, wasn't all that young. I was 23.
Is young.
But we had to work at it. We had to do it if we wanted. There was no way of slacking off. There was no way of depending on somebody, because you had nobody. So you work hard to get what you wanted. But what I find with the young people today is that now that they have us, they have their parents, they have even grandparents, they depend on us to give them too much. And we lavish too much on them. So they have this lackadaisical attitude, and they need to be told that they have to do it in order to get through in this country, not only in this country, but any part of the world.
So despite the racism and other difficulties that black young people face here, they shouldn't throw their hands up in failure, but
you can't throw your hands up in failure, because I would say that racism is even worse now than it was then. Because when I came to Canada, there was a few of us, and they kind of accepted us. And we went through the system because it wasn't too many. But now that we have a lot of black young people and bright young people in the city, the racism is far more visible.
Although Esteban Cavallo did not have it easy in life, he was determined to make something positive of himself. Brought up in a rough area of the city of Toronto known as the Jungle, Esteban had no positive role models to emulate. But something within him was telling him that there must be a better way. Esteban is now a happy and beloved high school teacher with an ambition to reach the top.
I never thought I would be a teacher. You know, although all my life I've worked with kids, you know, in the community that I grew up, I never thought that it would lead me being a teacher. You know, just inspirations that I got from different people.
Yeah. So what really made you decide to be a teacher?
Well, all my life I've been working with kids, and just seeing role models around me. It's just something I figured I could do. I remember somebody telling me that whatever you're good at, make sure you're the best. And the only thing that I knew how to do was work with kids, working with Parks and Recs, and my music. So I decided to hone in on what I was good at. You know, just play music and hopefully working with kids. And that made me think maybe I could be a teacher. Right? At first I didn't think I could do it, but then I gave it a chance and worked through it. I grew up in low-income housing areas, right? But at that time I didn't know that there was another world out there. I went to a school called Lawrence Heights. I also went to Bathurst Heights, so they were also in that area. And
Well, you went to those school, but was there any sort of role model in that environment too?
yeah, but all my role models, now that I look at it, weren't really role models, right? The role models that I saw were the guys who had the cars or had the nice clothes, you know. I didn't know any other role models such as teachers, right? Because at that time, you know, I didn't really know teachers that looked like me or understood where I came from or what I was about. You know, it's like the teachers came from another world to my world, and then they left. So it was a bit different.
Your world was in the Jane Finch area?
I lived there a little bit, but I grew up in another place that called Village, right? And I also spent some time in a place called Jungle, right?
Oh,
right?
Jungle.
Yeah.
Why was it called Jungle?
I guess it's a stereotype name, right? Like if you look at it, it's offensive. Like people that I grew up with now, if you say jungle, they'll say don't call it that. But it's probably because of the area. People were afraid to come into that area, right? I guess because there were a lot of minorities there, right? And there was a bit of gang problem, but you know, I never thought of it as anything bad.
What kind of motivation that really drove you to success, you think, along the way?
There was different steps, different things along the way. There was one time when I was growing up, there was in our community, right? There was one guy that was completely different than everybody else. I'll never forget him. A friend and I were trying to look for him once, and you know, just thank him for being, you know, for inspiring us. His name was Jesse. He used to be the lifeguard in our area, but he's also like a counselor, like a camp counselor, and he was different than all the boys. All the other, you know, bigger boys that we used to look up to, they were into like either drugs or gangs or, you know, but they had the clothes and the cars, and we wanted that, right? But Jesse always used to say, leave that aside. And the different thing about him was that he went to school. He went to university. That's a concept that I've never understood until that day when he talked to me. You know, university. I didn't know what university or school was and what he was going to do. You know, so he was the first one along the way. The next one along the way would probably be the death of my best friend.
Passed away.
It hurt. And I didn't want my life to be wasted. You know, when my friend died, it really hurt. And I was very young. I was still a teen at that time, and we always dreamed of doing things, right? But I didn't know anything else.
How were you able to break out from that kind of environment to aspire towards? Because as far as I'm hearing now, you were caged in by what you saw, and you didn't know anything outside of that. How you got to, you know, overcome that kind of thing, to reach out from that environment?
Just meeting certain other people, right? Probably the first thing was seeing people, wondering why other people had. When I got older, I got to see why other people had, and I didn't, and I want to know. And at that time I probably was about 17 when I had my son, right? And it was hard. I had no money, no way to take care of my son, right? All I knew was how to play music, right? There was a point that I dropped out of school because I thought, you know, maybe I could get a job, but I realized without an education, you can't get anywhere. I couldn't do nothing. And the only talent I had was music, so I went back to high school to get my diploma, and my music teachers were saying, you know, you're good enough to get into music program, you know. So they kind of helped, they kind of inspired me that way. And I auditioned at a college and got into a college.
Yes, sir. Which one of the colleges?
I went to Humber College, the jazz program there, and it was hard. It was hard. Like a lot of other kids, they had a lot of formal training that I didn't have. I just had guts and instincts because I grew up playing music, right? I grew up playing bass, I played pan, I played guitar, right? Played a bit of piano.
All of that naturally?
Yeah, just because music was always around me. If it wasn't, because
because where I grew up and also my family, right, I either heard a lot of calypso, a lot of Latin music, right, you know, yeah, even because a lot of Caribbean people also listen to country, I realize.
Yes.
So I go to their house and I hear this type of music, but music was always a part of everything, right? So that, I would go like the pan yard and learn how to play a bit of pan, you know, I'd go to church and, you know, I'd learn to play my guitar, I'd play bass, you know, and it's just part of life.
The name Brian Saunders is a household word, and at least it was one of Canada's great Olympians. In how many Olympics did you participate?
I participated in 2 Olympic Games. Actually, I'm a 3-time Olympian. In 1980, I was in 1976. 1980, we boycotted, and in 1984, I ran. So in 80, because due to the Iran situation and President Carter, we followed suit and we boycotted, but I am considered to be a 3-time Olympian, but participated in 2.
Okay. What were your main events?
Well, my main event was the 400 meters. I was a Canadian record holder basically for about 16 years. I also ran in the relays. I was a finalist in the relay in 76 and in 1980. And my best ranking in the world was 9th, and I ranked 16th in the world for a good 5 or 6 years throughout that my career.
That's very nice. Did you represent Canada in any other international events besides the Olympics?
Well, over the 15 years on the international team, I ran in all the major competition: World Student Games, Pan Am Games, Commonwealth Games, and World Cup Championships. I've gotten medals in the World Student Games, Pan Am Games, World Cup Championships. Yes, I've gotten different medals.
Now tell us, what really motivated you to become an athlete, or such a superb athlete? What motivated you?
Motivation. Well, the true story about that is going to school in the early days, even from public school all the way up. In terms of a student, I was not the greatest student. I consider myself to be an intelligent and wise student, but I was not academically. I had certain skills that I was not as good as I, well, should be. And the result of that is that I turned my non-skills into an athletic sort of venue. So I concentrated more on my athletics, and that's what really got me, that's what motivated me. I was good in athletics, so therefore I excelled in athletics.
So with your experience, would you tell young people that they should find their niche and try to develop it to the fullest, because we are all...
I will tell them in all honesty, whatever they do, do it to the best that they can. I will also say, if you are an A student, strive to be an A student. If you are not an A student, still try to be an A student, but whatever you do, do to the best of your ability. And don't let anyone stop you from doing what you honestly feel that you're capable or what your gifts are.
Now, reaching our Olympic standard, I guess, is very, very tough. I mean, even from my own experience of doing a little athlete on my athletics at my country level. Tell me, was it easy to attain such a high standard? What was the process?
It is very hard to be an Olympic athlete. The hours of training, the dedication, the concentration that one has to go through, it is difficult. Now that I look back over my years, I'm proud. I feel a sense of great accomplishment. Throughout the years that I was doing it, it was a joke. I didn't really take it as seriously in terms of recognizing how lucky and fortunate I was to have the opportunity to be one of Canada's best, to be Canada's best actually in my event, and to be one of the best in the world. It is quite an honor.
Quite an accomplishment,
Yes.
an accomplishment. I would agree. But did you have any support, like, what kind of support system?
Well, my support system was always my parents to a certain degree, because being a Seventh-day Adventist, there were things that I was not following according to our rules and my parents' rules. But they, as best as they could, you know, they supported me. You know, in those days, there were a lot more other athletes, you know, West Indian athletes on the team. They supported me. And another thing too, when you are the best in your country, you tend to get a lot more support because you are the best. They have no other choice, you know. You know, you may not get as much support as somebody else that's running with you, but, you know, they have to support you because, you know, the final thing is that when you cross the finish line is whatever the camera picks up as being first. So, you know, I was 7 years of age when I came here, and I went to a public school. It was Dewson Public School downtown, and there was only 3 of us. It's something that I always keep in my mind and I'll never forget. It was Darcy Gibbs, Dennis Farmer, and myself. Those, to the day I die, these 3 names will always be in my mind. Brian Saunders, Darcy Gibbs, you know, and Dennis Farmer. And we're the only 3 blacks in the school of over 3,000 kids, and it was a very strange and difficult time in the early 60s, you know.
How did you handle yourself at school? Did you?
It was very. It was difficult. There was a lot of racial problems growing up. In those days, it was difficult because the teachers and the principal, they were not able. They did not understand how to deal with black people or even black children in those days. So whatever was going on in the States at the time in the early 60s with the Black Revolution, so to speak, it was affecting us very, very strongly. And whatever the name calling, it was constant. I used to get beat up every single day, get spit on and told I can't even walk on the sidewalk. Kids would walk behind me and call me walking, talking, chocolate bar. It was very rough, you know, and because of that, and being a Seventh-day Adventist with all this going on, going home, constantly fighting all the time, and my parents would say, well, you don't fight, you must turn the other cheek, so to speak, so I will get a beating. Until after a year or so, with this constant thing going on, they got fed up and they went down to the school to find out exactly what was going on, and at that time they understood that the teachers and the principal, there was a lot of racism. I was told, all you do is say sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. A very difficult concept, and you know, for a young child at 7 and 8 years of age growing up in Toronto, it was hard, very hard.
Charlene Edwards faces the challenges in her life head on. Her first ambition was to become a lawyer. She thought that being a lawyer, she would be able to help many young blacks that came in conflict with the law. It didn't happen the way she hoped, so she proceeded to become a policewoman. It is interesting to note that while this script was in the process of being written, Charlene got accepted into law school.
My intention to become a police officer didn't start as far back as that. In fact, in high school, I wanted to become a lawyer. And that persisted into the post-secondary stage, at which I was taking courses so I can get a job, so I can facilitate post-secondary education. And I came into contact with someone who let me know that the police service was hiring for court officers. So I went through the process and passed the test, and I got on as a court officer. And it was in the midst of working in the cells and in the courts that I realized that a disproportionate number of the prisoners that were inside the cells were black. Being very community-oriented, that bothered me. I thought I would get into law to address and to help the community and do what I can for my community. And at that point, I realized that I could perhaps do a lot more for my community at the front line as a police officer rather than a lawyer. And again, it wasn't a matter of giving up my dream of law, but at that point in my life, I saw the opportunity to do something immediately. And if I let that opportunity pass to become a police constable, it may not come again. So becoming a police constable, I felt that was a direct chance or opportunity to have influence, use discretion, decide whether someone should go into the system and at what point, and so on and so forth.
Something that comes out very emphatically here now is that one must have a plan B. It seems as though you didn't give up saying that, oh, I cannot become a lawyer, so that's it, but you had a plan B.
Well, for myself, I really truly believe that we create our own reality, that we can do absolutely anything we want, and when we're down and out, we are maintaining that reality, and that we can get ourselves out by creating a whole different reality. So I decided, okay, I want to become a police officer, but that didn't preclude me from becoming a lawyer at some point in my life, or pursuing law in a different aspect and contributing to police services. Or, I mean, there's a whole world of choices out there that we can combine together. It doesn't all have to be segmented. So the plan B thing, I think there can be a plan C and plan D. I know people who have done 4 careers in their life, and they've done them all well because they chose to do so. And it's not to say that, okay, next year I'm going to become a lawyer and leave police services. However, we have lawyers who work with police services. They're police constables. They pursue their post-secondary education in law, and they come back and help out the police in the area of law.
Okay, the way you're talking now, it sounds very easy that you just jump from one point to the other. Was it that easy in the process of getting where you are now?
Not at all. Not at all. I really don't see anything in life to be easy, and when I see it as too easy, I'm looking for a deeper meaning because there's something behind there. But again, I think maybe it's an optimistic point of view, a space of positivity, that even when I'm going through something that's really hard, because I have gone through hard things just like any other person on this earth, I believe, has had their hard times, that there's something there that a higher power wants me to take from it, that there's a lesson, and I will not make any negative or bad situation come upon me and leave it with nothing. I will take from it what I choose, or what needs for me to take. So I'm going through whatever it may be, racism, sexism, a bad family situation, friend situation. I will not go through there thinking it's just something that has to happen and then go on from life and not take anything from it. There's a lesson, there's some kind of seed in there that I need to take in. And I find that makes it a little bit easier when you go through the obstacles, that there's something, it justifies that happening, that bad thing happening for me.
Okay. We better not put that on camera. You okay?
Dr. Robert Young, a successful practicing dentist in the city of Toronto, is one of the fortunate young blacks. He attended an academic school, had strong parental support, and did not have to contend with devious peer pressure. He encourages young blacks to surround themselves with positive influences.
Because it was Kelly's birthday, and Kelly's a receptionist. So she just had her birthday. I think it's really important that when you go through life is to associate with people with positive energy, positive things to say. I was very fortunate. My parents are very positive people. They helped me. My dad's a teacher. He told me how, I always knew that I was going to go to university. I was always positive. I hung around with a lot of positive people in high school and university, and when that happens, things happen for you. I got associated with this office because of a relationship I got into with a teacher at the university who happened to work here. And when I started here, which was 14 years ago, I had that introduction by that professor. When I got here, I worked with Dr. Weeks, who's a very positive man, and his staff is wonderful people. Dentistry is people don't like going to the dentist. They always say that they don't like going to the dentist, and I find that there's a lot of truth in that. And I think that what makes this practice work is that there are people like Hyacinth and Kelly and Dr. Weeks who just make life easy. And I think that's the thing. It's not it's who you associate with. Avoid those negative people. They're just going to bring you down.
One of the most positive men that I've ever met is Mr. Ronald Blake, principal and founder of Higher Marks. He tells of how he did not have the opportunity to attend school in his early childhood. It was only at the age of 12 years when a concerned teacher hid him in a classroom that he began to learn how to read. How long have you been the principal of Higher Marks? In other words, how long have you established this institution?
This is the year 2000. It's 79, so I'd say 21 years.
What really motivated you to, start an institution like that in the city of Toronto?
That's a question I've had probably once a month. The truth is that I wanted to correct or make possible a new brand of opportunity for persons who would normally have had my unfortunate experience in trying to raise myself from illiteracy. I thought that the educational system did not provide the particular kind of opportunity. So I created Higher Marks.
So what kind of program you offer there in your school that you would consider quite different from those offered in the ordinary school system?
Well, the first thing that one has to know about learning on the part of, especially on the part of minority people, is that they have to have a sense of self. Identity is critical. If a student looked in a book, and every textbook he looks into, he sees nothing other, he sees everything else but himself, or his kind of people. Sooner or later, he'll get the message that his kind have made no valuable contribution to civilization, and therefore he himself could not be expected reasonably to make one.
Okay.
So the first difference that you'll find at Higher Marks is that we make an effort to introduce the student to the history, the world history of his people. Within that context, we begin to design his reformative education so he can understand what he can do with it in light of what has been done by his kind.
Okay. You see, is every child, you think, capable of academic learning?
Yes, sir. I believe, honestly, that every student placed before any teacher is capable of learning. However, I do not believe that every teacher in front of every student is capable of teaching. You see, teaching is an imprecise science. If we therefore went to each student with the same design or approach, naturally you must expect failure in some areas because the students will be different according to who they are, their backgrounds, etc. So actually, to teach a person successfully, we have to understand something about him before you understand something about the objective of the program. We shouldn't teach him to fit into industry. We should teach him to fit into himself.
And from there, move on.
Of course. Once he's at peace with himself, he's at peace with humanity, and he makes a contribution with joy.
Now, on that same score, you must have heard that several students are told that you never make it. Can you quickly summarize some sort of experience you had with students who perhaps had the same feeling that they cannot make it?
Yes. Before I give you those examples, I want you to know that I would be one of those students at some point in history. You see, I had not gone to school until I was roughly 10 years of age. Didn't learn to read and write, my alphabet, etc. Hid in a classroom, hidden through elementary school. Principal didn't know I was there, etc.
You mean you hid in the school?
I was hidden in a school, yes, by a teacher because I couldn't be registered, I was too old.
Oh,
and so she hid me illegally in the school.
Well, that is interesting.
And that's how I learned my alphabet.
That is very interesting.
Now, when you ask me if I believe that every student can learn, is that the question?
Yes. Yeah, if you think so, every student is capable of learning.
every student is capable of learning. Every single one. All we need to do is to design. First of all, help him to realize a purpose or imagine one. I would say to my students, before I begin teaching him, what would you like to become in the world? And he has to tell me something before I decide what I would do with him. So for example, here's a student who came to me. His parents called Higher Marks Institute the last stop. He was considered to be a student totally unable to receive abstract information. His psychological report said his hands were his only hope. He was hardly with a mind. I asked the boy, if you could become something in life, what would you become? He said, I would have become an accountant like my father, a chartered accountant. I said to the boy, if this is the case, why don't you choose to become the Minister of Finance of Canada? Were you born here? He said, yes. I said, now, I'm going to teach you, but I'm teaching you to become the Minister of Finance of Canada. And my pension will be in your hand. From now on, if you make a mistake, the nation will suffer. Now let's begin. The same boy, 3 years later, became the top student in metropolitan Toronto. Above 40 schools.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's quite an achievement.
Yes, the Toronto Star has a record of that. They ran an article for a full week on this subject. What is the difference? The student saw a purpose for his education. It fit with his dreams.
Okay.
All I did then was to show him the machinery to integrate the dream with the reality, with a plan, an educational plan. And we set out. Do you know that a student went on to become, he went to University of Ottawa, but he also became the head of the Liberal Party youth wing.
Oh, that is nice.
You know why?
Very close to the
You know why? Because he's going to become a Minister of Finance of Canada one fine day.
Right on the track.
Right on the track. He was elected head of the Liberal Party youth wing when he came to report to me his success. So the point is then, yes, every student can learn. Every student can learn if he has a purpose. The purpose has to be defined with him. And then we engineer the course of study to line up with the purpose so he can see why he's doing what he's doing. There's a student whom everybody had decided was autistic, semi-autistic. He spent a great number of years getting treatment at the Clark's Institute of Psychiatry in Toronto. Not knowing what else to do with him, the parents decided, let us send him to the Higher Marks Educational Institute. So they brought him to me. He was about 14 or 15 years old at the time. Well, I believed that I could teach anybody.
Okay.
And here was a surprise of my life.
Challenge.
Yes. I said to the boy, I could say, X, or call him Jackson for argument's sake, walk around that table. And he said, Jackson, walk around the table.
He just echoed you.
He said it. So I said, Jackson, pick up that book. And you say, Jackson, pick up that book. I then realized I had an impossibility in my hand. But then it struck me. Teaching has to be creative. And it's the design of the technology is determined by the nature of the subject in front of you to be taught. So I got up, I held his hand, and they say, Jackson, walk around the table. And I went with him. After a few times, I told him, Jackson, walk around the table. And he went on his own.
Okay.
To make a long story short, he went on to pass his Ontario grade 9.
Yes, yes.
And the Clark Institute told the parent, if there's one place that this boy should be, is at Higher Marks Institute. He now has a job, and he's probably a married man in Toronto today.
Isn't that something? What a success. What a success story.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that
if I seem motivated and excited, don't ask me these questions because I do get excited.
Yes. Well, you have to be excited. I mean, that is quite a story, you know, quite a story.
Lloyd has been managing his own business since 1979. He encourages blacks to plan their lives around where they want to go and be prepared to work hard. Don't look for the easy way out because nothing good comes easy, he emphasizes.
Okay, I'd like to say to the young people of today that you can't look on the easy road. You have to think on where you want to go in life, and then you plan your life around where you want to go. But on the other hand, you're going to have to prepare to work hard because nothing is going to come very easy. So you have to work hard and persevere, and in that way I think you can achieve your goals.
Dr. Everton Gooden attended George Harvey High School, where he concentrated heavily on sports. But he soon realized that sports were not all in life and began to work on his academic subjects. Because of this, he was criticized by his black peers for trying to be white. On the other hand, Everton was chided by his white teacher for trying to aim too high. Despite the contradiction, he succeeded in accomplishing his goal in life.
As I was saying, the early years of high school, my grades were very, very poor. It wasn't until grade 11, for various reasons, where I started really to focus more on my academics. I got my grades up. 25% my average increased, actually, between grade 11 and my OACs. So from there, I went to the University of Toronto, and I studied biochemistry for the first 4 years. It was difficult because, as I said, I don't think I had the tools because of the fact that I really didn't focus in on my academics initially. I was playing catch-up. Okay, so I remember what I used to do is I used to sit down and I used to think, well, what is it about all these individuals around me that makes them so smart? What are they doing that I'm not doing that allows them to get the A+? Okay, and there was one simple answer. There was nothing complicated about it. They were determined, they worked hard, and they were committed. So they went home every night, okay, and 2 hours a night they did something. Didn't mean they didn't play basketball or didn't play hockey or didn't play whatever they wanted to do or go see a movie, but they committed themselves to the task, which meant organizing yourself. And every night, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there was a chunk of their time that they devoted to academics. That is commitment, that is determination, that is hard work, and that's why they were so successful.
I think it's also important that while you're endeavoring to succeed academically, that you participate in various activities. I've participated in sports all my life. I now play rugby. I play rugby for the Yeoman Summer Club team. I captain the York University women's rugby team, and I have for the past 2 years. I also played for the provincial team, and I was a member of the 1996 team when we won the national championship.
Wait, you said provincial team?
Yes.
With men?
No, we have a women's. I actually played rugby for a men's team.
Oh, you play with the men?
I did in '94, I believe it was. When '93 or '94, York didn't have a women's rugby team, and I wanted to play so badly.
Yes.
And my brother was at York that time, and he was playing rugby in the men's team, and I knew that they were short numbers. So I approached the coach and I asked him if I could play, and he said that he didn't have a problem with it as long as I could, do the things that the guys could do, as long as I could play with them and earn their respect. And I did, and I actually made the team. And the following year, actually I ended up suing, or started proceedings to sue the university because they wouldn't let me play because they were not willing to take an insurance on me. And there is a law that says if there isn't an equivalent sport, a female sport, then a female cannot be prevented from playing on the men's team.
Okay.
So I got a lawyer, we started proceedings to the university, and what you know, the next year they gave us a women's rugby team. So that was great, that was really wonderful. So that team is wonderful. I play basketball as well. I play football. I've played on Osgood's football team for the past 3 years, and we've been the champion for the last 3 years. And I've always done sports. I also volunteer. I think it's important to volunteer in organizations within our community. And I volunteered for the John Burroughs Community Foundation and Scholarship Fund for the last 12 years or so. And I've chaired the awards committee and the selections committee. I've choreographed many fashion shows, many talent shows, and it's been a wonderful experience because we show kids from grade 7 to first year university that, you know, that it pays to really work hard. And there's a trend now, if you're planning to go to university or planning to go to professional school, they don't just look at your grades anymore, and I think it's very important that you know this. They don't just look at your GPA and your LSATs. They want diverse students. They want students who volunteer. They want students who play sports, who participate in extracurricular activities. So spread yourself out and just really enjoy yourself.
Just come to be a mechanic overnight. I worked in the oil field. I used to work servicing oil rigs and stuff like that. I was a carpenter. I did plumbing. What did I do again? Almost everything. I've done every little small thing I could possibly do. No job was too small, no job was too big. I guess it took me a period of time and I picked out one, which was a mechanic. And I just stuck with it. And I'm the best as I possibly can. And I'm sure these guys are still better than me, but I am pretty good.
So what you were saying now, don't stand there by the fence and wait for something to come your way.
You have to go and get it. You have to want something and set your goal and work against that one goal that you want. You just can't set one and 6 months to change your mind. You'll end up 40 years old and you'll have nothing.
And apparently what you were saying too, there mightn't be a direct path or going towards what you're
going. You have to have an idea of what's there.
But then you do anything along the way.
Exactly. Just don't give up. You can't just give up. It's not that easy. Life is not easy. There's always ups and downs. But pick something that you're good at and just stick with it. Okay. Sooner or later it's going to come true.
Anything that we want to do, we can do. Absolutely anything. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Some people confuse that and think I'm saying it's going to be easy. It's going to be hard as anything, especially if it's your passion. My suggestion is to find your passion first off. First step, find what it is that is you, is your essence, what you're meant to, what you're put on this earth to do, and then plot out exactly how you're going to do it. And not just one path, but a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, just so you can get to that goal. And some people may be told, don't become an actor because you're not going to make money. You know, decide what you want to do. Do you want to act or do you want to make a lot of money? Do you want both? And then plot it out. And I truly believe that, and I've been raised somehow to believe this, and it's worked for me, is we create our own realities. Yeah.
That first of all, nothing comes easy. And some people will have to take a long route. I had to take a long route. I felt others had things easy. I had to go back to high school, finish that. Then after high school, I went to college, which was 3 years, right? But that wasn't enough, right? Because in the beginning, because of my marks in high school, there was no way I could get into university. You know, the only skill I had was that I could play music. But when I was in college, I got to work on my writing skills also, right? Got to improve my marks, and then I had to go to university, right? So the thing of me was, I'm getting too old to go back to school, which is not true. I had, in my classroom, I remember there was an older gentleman who came back to school. He was in his 50s. I'll never forget it. He was in his 50s. But back then I said, I'm too old to go to school. Then I met this gentleman in my classroom. He's in his 50s going back to school. You know?
So that was a sort of motivation.
Yeah, but it's hard because because I was still looking at my friends. I was going back to the neighborhood, looking at my friends, and you know, they had the nice cars, and they had all my money went to tuition or books. You know, it was hard. And they would still be laughing at me and saying, where are you going to school? You're going to owe a lot of money. But the funny thing is, now that I have a job years later, I can still go back into that same place, and they're still there.
Same way.
Same way. They haven't changed. They're in the same place, same way. They haven't changed. You know, it's like they never left the community. Even sadder, like I was telling you earlier, I have friends who've been killed because of the lifestyle, you know, and they're very young, you know, and that's what I just wanted to leave that after a while, You know, because I said, why do other people have it? I don't. But I had to take a long road. If I tell people, oh, I went to college first, then I went and got my degree, then I had to go to teacher's college, most people would say, no, I don't want to do that. That's too much time. It's going to be too much money. It is time. And it wasn't easy, I tell you. It wasn't easy.
But if you were to measure that now, you find that time would go on anyhow. You'll get older anyhow. But at a certain point in time, you will see that you either get older with or without certain things.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what my professor said, because after my first year, I was struggling. I remember my first year, my first paper. This is the hardest I've ever worked on a paper. I got it back, and I got a C-. I went home and I cried. I cried. This is the hardest I've ever worked on a paper. I got a C-. So I talked to my professor, and he says, well, you just got to find ways, you know, get it to. So what I did is I made friends with some of the English students in third year who helped me how to put a paper together. Right? And this same professor, he told me, okay, if you want to finish, I said, I don't want to do no more. He said, in 5 years, you're either going to have that degree or you're not. It's up to you. I said, it's 5 years. It's up to you. Either you're going to have that degree in 5 years. Think of it, that 5 years is going to come anyways.
Anyway, you have it or not.
Maybe have it or not.
If I was talking to my son, I would say, the first advice I'll give you is know that there is nobody greater than you except God in the whole universe.
Okay.
You can behold nothing greater than you. That's step one. That means you become whatever you think about all day long.
Okay.
Fear God. And I'll say it again, don't be frightened of God. That fear means know what He asks you to do and do it. Then all your purposes can be designed around the following. Choose what it is that you've decided you want to do. Think of yourself of having all the resources to do it. Don't say, I can't imagine it because I don't have money. Say to yourself, I'm rich beyond all measure and I can do whatever I want. Choose a thing that you want to do. Now, say to yourself, how much do I have as a resource to go about this? And you find you have $1.55. So you need $1 million. So the difference between the $1.55 and the million is what you need. You've now got to set up a principle to go get the rest of money.
All right.
And that's how you make a success of yourself.
Yes.
You start with where you are.
And what you have.
Do not envy. Copy. In higher language, emulate. But I want to tell you, don't envy the successful person. Find out how
He became successful.
and follow him. That is what I'd say to anybody. There's only one copy of you. In other words, let's say we have 6.3 billion people in the world today. If you search the world entirely, you discover in all of history, only one of you was made. And for all times, it still will be only one. It means that if you fail, this copy, the only copy that has ever come to the planet Earth, has failed. But since it's the only copy, it plays a very important part that no other copy can play in the whole world.
All right.
So therefore, you are the difference between what mankind can become and what it cannot do.
Let freedom ring over the nation. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings. Ring with the harmonies of liberty.
Some common qualities that surface as we listen to these successful people overcome the mountains in their lives are the following.
rejoice and rise. God of all wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on our way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in thy path. That's what we are gonna pray. God who led us into the light, keep us forever. Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Let freedom ring, let freedom